I didn't change our road trip plans around my brother-in-law's food restrictions. My sister Amy and I grew up eating whatever was put in front of us. Our parents cooked at home almost every night. Lots of vegetables, lots of leftovers. Nothing fancy but balanced. Amy kept that going with her kids. I did too with mine. My brother-in-law Doug, on the other hand, grew up on frozen meals and fast food and never really moved past that. He's not allergic to anything, just extremely picky. Beige food only. No sauces, no surprises. Their son Kevin just finished middle school and had been obsessed with national parks all year. He did a whole project on them and begged to see one in person. Amy suggested a summer road trip through Utah and Arizona, Zion, Bryce Canyon, the Grand Canyon. I was already planning a similar trip with my family, so we decided to go together. I volunteered to handle the planning since I'd done the route before. I sent a detailed itinerary to the family group chat weeks in advance. Which parks, which trails, where we'd stop for food. I mentioned that most of the towns near the parks were small and had limited restaurant options. Mostly diners, food trucks, local places. Doug replied with a thumbs up. I assumed he understood. The first night, we stopped in a tiny town near Zion. One main street, 3 restaurants. Doug stared at the menu like it was written in another language. Everything had sauces or spices or vegetables mixed in. Amy asked if they could make him a plain burger. The waitress said they could try. It came out wrong. Doug barely touched it. The next day, we packed lunches for the park. Sandwiches, fruit, trail mix. Doug ate the bread off his sandwich and threw the rest away. He said he wasn't that hungry anyway. By Bryce Canyon, the tension was obvious. Every meal turned into a discussion. Amy asking if there was anywhere else nearby. Me explaining there wasn't. Doug sighing and saying he'd just wait until later. Meanwhile, the kids were thrilled. Hiking, pointing out rock formations, taking pictures, asking questions. Kevin was glued to my kids, comparing notes from his project. One night, Amy pulled me aside and asked if we could plan more normal meals. I asked what that meant. She said places Doug would actually eat. I reminded her we were in the middle of national park country. There weren't chain restaurants everywhere. She said she hadn't realized it would be like this. Our last stop was a campground near the Grand Canyon. That morning, I told everyone I was taking the kids to a small cafe near the rim for breakfast, before hiking. Doug said he wanted to come because he was tired of protein bars and snacks. I warned him the cafe had a limited menu. He said it was fine. It wasn't. He stared at the board, then sat down heavily at a table. Amy brought him coffee and tried to piece together something he'd eat. He ended up with dry toast. Halfway through, he said he felt sick and asked to go back to the campsite. I gave him the keys and told him to rest. He didn't argue. We ate, hiked, watched a ranger talk, and spent hours at the overlook. The kids were ecstatic. Kevin took photos non-stop and kept saying this was way better than his textbook. When we got back, Doug was lying in the tent with the zipper closed. Amy pulled me aside and said, I was inconsiderate for not adjusting the trip to Doug's needs, that I should have researched restaurants better or chosen parks closer to cities. I said I'd sent the itinerary and warned everyone. She said that wasn't enough and that I should have known Doug wouldn't manage like this. I asked if she wanted me to skip the parks. Kevin was excited about just so Doug could eat comfortably. She didn't answer. She just said I was making Doug feel like a burden. The drive home was quiet. Doug barely spoke. Amy stared out the window. At a rest stop, Kevin climbed into my car and showed me all the pictures he'd taken. He said it was the best trip he'd ever been on, and that he finally understood why people loved parks so much. He asked if we could do another one someday.